So with that, I'm going to close by saying thank you. I'm going to invite Katie to come up just for a couple of minutes here. And as I said, Katie has been an incredible partner for me and the rest of the team to let you ask any final closing questions you might have before we close the day today.
Thanks, Bill, and it's been a pleasure for me working with you and all the other great staff at MDIC. So I know I'm standing between you and your weekend. Just wanted to ask all of you to, gather your last thoughts for any last questions. And while you're doing that, I just wanted to offer some remarks to kind of stitch together and connect some dots to what we've heard about today. So you heard at the beginning about how important it is for us to come together to tackle regulatory science challenges and how doing that really does help facilitate getting better technologies to patients faster. One of the first conversations I ever had with Ross Jaffe, who of course has an unparalleled view of early innovative technology development and his role in venture capital, is that innovative technologies are really disadvantaged at every step of the process just because of how the system is set up. And so one of the great things and the potential and promise of the work that MDIC does is to address that from a system level and look at what is it we can do to reduce those barriers, to kind of level the playing field so we're not leaving all of these promising technologies to die on the vine. I think there's also, you heard a lot about from Dr. Califf and Sharon about fit-for-purpose evidence generation. So are we doing the right science to answer the question we need to answer? And one of the challenges, I think, in the device industry in that arena is what you heard from Jan Welch. 60% of the companies have 10 employees or fewer, 75% are 20 or fewer employees. We're just making the same mistakes over and over again and relearning, reinventing the wheel. And so that's another opportunity, I think, that MDIC provides as an organization that kind of learns and builds on what it is we're discovering and sharing it across the ecosystem. Resource challenges is, of course, one big motivator for collaboration, and, the infrastructure challenges to set up these partnerships, are not insignificant, especially when you're talking about these small companies that have limited resources and may not have a full-blown legal department. And so, I think that's not flashy, but it's really a critical part of what makes these collaborations possible. But it's also, I think in bringing people together from these different perspectives, you look at the same problem that we've been staring at for years and years from different perspectives, and we talk about it, and we have a better understanding, I think, of some of these challenges, and different solutions emerge when you do that. And I think that's one of the great opportunities that participation in MDIC projects can provide. The other thing I think is that, we have seen some really substantive work being delivered from some of these working groups. Some of these are incremental changes, and some of them are gearing us up towards more transformational changes. And I think increasing participation by more and more stakeholders in the community will just help accelerate our progress towards that goal. And some of the efficiency gains, I think they can be perceived as not so flashy because they're process improvement. But I would make the argument that there are some efficiency gains that are at such a great magnitude that they are, in fact, transformational. So, I would characterize some of the progress that's been made in the IDE space with the work that Owen Ferris shared with us as transformational process improvement. Going from 400 days median to 30 is pretty transformational process improvement. And I think there are going to be more and more opportunities for some of the incremental work that's going on in MDIC projects to build towards that kind of transformational improvement in the system. So any other questions from the audience for Bill or I or any of the other project leads?
It's probably a question that you've asked and answered, but when you talk about 75% of the medical device industry being 20 people or 10 people or less, what's the plan on bringing more of that voice into MDIC? Because I think that some people in the room work with a lot of those companies, and first of all, there were a lot of questions today about how people are aware of these the progress we're making. A lot of those companies aren't aware unless they have someone that they know from these groups who can help advise them. So I'm just wondering if there's a plan or if there needs to be a group that talks about how to bring more of that voice into these initiatives.
Yeah, Vicki, that's a good question. We have a small number of small companies, a very, very small number, obviously, in the whole context of the ecosystem. We also have as members AdvaMed and MDMA, and the small company group of AdvaMed, Ashley Wallen-Woodorf and Mark Leahy from MDMA, we reach out to them when we're looking for input. So, for example, on some of those surveys, and Kareem Benali mentioned, we got a lot of feedback from small companies through an outreach with MDMA. So we recognize we have to use that group. And we also use some of the regional associations like Life Science Alley when we need to reach out on specific topics as well. The engagement on the programs is more challenging because when you get 10 people, if you ask a 10-person organization to put people on projects, you're asking for a significant percentage of their staffing. So they're oftentimes have a more limited engagement, but even then, if it's something that is extremely important, we will get, on occasions, one of their staff members to be involved in the project.
And I would say, I think we're, 3 years in now for MDIC, so we're starting to see some early wins, and some of it is a chicken and an egg situation, right? I mean, what particular type of project wins are particularly appealing to the smaller companies? One of the things I don't know that we really highlighted well enough in talking about some of our projects is what the companies who are participating learned along the way as part of, what the group was working on. So, for example, Stephanie did a nice job telling us about the clinical trials work and the study design project. But what we heard in the April meeting that was dedicated to the clinical trials topic, where we unpacked that a little bit more, is that almost every one of the companies that did volunteer to provide that data, in going back and looking at that, they learned so much about what in their own company processes were contributing to this problem of collecting more data than we actually need, and what the consequences were in terms of investment and decision making inside the company. So, I think case for quality will probably end up being like that too. The companies that are actively involved are going to be learning things about their own companies that they'll have a head start on thinking about how to integrate this, how to be ready for the changes, and how to just be competitive in the marketplace. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you all for your attention and participation. Please talk to the project leads if you're interested in any specific project, and Bill if you're interested in membership, and any of the FDA team if you have questions about any of the work that we're doing. And have a good weekend.